I, 30 years old, female, cannot trust my husband, 32 years old, male, after having a baby. My husband completely withdrew from our baby and me right after I gave birth. I did everything myself. I had horrible postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, because I was burnt out and felt completely alone, rejected. I threatened divorce and to file for full custody of our child. I had receipts to prove I paid for everything and texts from him that proved he was being neglectful. I had every right not to trust him with our child. He didn't go to therapy, but he agreed he probably had postpartum depression and would work on adjusting to his new life as a father. It's been a little over a year, and he has improved drastically as far as being a father. I trust him with our child now completely. Now that he has resolved his issues with parenting, we want to improve our relationship. I guess while I was recovering from postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression myself, it pushed me far away from him. I don't trust him to take care of me or comfort me, nor do I want to go to him for any emotional support. We have turned into roommates and prefer to spend time apart. This has been bothering him, not me so much, and he wants to work on intimacy and rekindling our relationship. I agreed to try to work on our relationship, but I've found I'm just not interested in him anymore. I don't want to put any effort into our marriage. This frustrates him, and in turn, makes him want to work even less. What concerns me is I just don't care. The biggest thing for me in a relationship is emotional security, and I don't have that with him. I don't want to allow myself to open up to him again out of fear he'll hurt, abandon me again. We are now at a stalemate. We have talked about this issue a few times, and it ends in a heated argument, and very little has changed. Every time I try to talk to him about postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, and how it almost took my life, I feel like he brushes it under the rug. I feel like he doesn't see how seriously ill I was during that time. He definitely doesn't see how he contributed to that pain. This also hurts me because I think I'll only have one child. That is not what I wanted, but I don't think I could ever have another baby with him. This also contributes to me not wanting to put any effort. I just got in touch with a therapist and my first appointment is coming soon. Since we have opened this Pandora's box, I have been emotionally unwell. I obviously haven't addressed my issues fully, but I am looking forward to therapy. I can't wait to have a safe place to get all this out and feel heard. Has anyone else gone through this, and how did you get through it? Should I let down my guard and trust him again? Or should he be the one actively working to regain my trust? Or should I cut him slack because we were both going through the trenches and he just couldn't handle it? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I have been through this. My husband essentially abandoned me and my son after he was born. He only gave us a place to live. He started parenting more around 6 months. My son is 6 years old now, and my husband still continues to neglect us on most days. We've talked about that time, but he's never really apologized, and my resentment has grown into contempt. We're on our way to divorce now because he won't change, and I can't get over it. Mostly because he keeps neglecting me and my son. He traumatized me and continues to do so. If your husband can't acknowledge the trauma he caused you, you won't be able to trust him. He needs to put the work in to rebuild your trust. Comment 2. That he will still not acknowledge the pain of what you went through, even after all of that, is wild to me. I don't really think I could get past that or trust someone who would dismiss my experience of that kind of trauma. Especially if he was experiencing something similar. Like if he didn't have the capacity to help, then he still should be able to acknowledge that you needed help. I find a partner dismissing health struggles, mental or physical, to be something I could not deal with. If I cannot trust you when I'm sick, I cannot trust you, because even if you don't have another child, you will get sick, somehow, some way. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, things have been spiraling out of control since I last reached out. Remember how I said my husband and I were like roommates? Well, turns out he's been more than just roommates with someone else. I found texts on his phone. Not that I was snooping, but he left his phone on the kitchen counter with the messages popping up. It was from a coworker, hearts and winks and plans to meet up after work. My stomach dropped. I confronted him and he tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was right there. He finally admitted to an affair, saying it was because he felt neglected and unwanted at home. As if that's an excuse. I was furious, not just because of the betrayal, but because I had been the one truly neglected when I needed him most. And now, he had the audacity to turn it around on me. I felt like I was being walked all over again. And this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. I told him he needed to leave, at least for a while, to give me some space to think. He packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. I was left alone with our child once again. But that wasn't the end of it. A few days later, I got a call from my bank about suspicious activity on our joint account. Turns out, he had been funneling money to a separate account for months. Money that was supposed to be for our family, for our child's future. I felt like a fool. I had trusted him to take care of our finances while I was dealing with my own mental health. And this is what he does. I took action. I went to the bank, showed them the proof of his affair and the unauthorized transfers. They were sympathetic and helped me secure the remaining funds. I also changed the locks on the house. If he thought he could just walk back into my life after all this, he had another thing coming. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, his mother called me. She had always been on his side, but this time, she was furious. Not with him, but with me. She accused me of driving her son away, of not being a supportive wife. She even threatened to take me to court for grandparents' rights to see her grandchild. I couldn't believe it. After everything her son had done, she was blaming me? I sought legal advice and prepared myself for a battle. I wasn't going to let her or my husband bully me into submission. I had been quiet and compliant for too long, and it was time to stand up for myself and my child. In the midst of all this chaos, I started therapy. It was a relief to talk to someone who actually listened, who validated my feelings, and helped me see that I wasn't the one at fault here. My therapist helped me understand that it's okay to set boundaries and to demand respect. And then, just when I thought I could catch my breath, my husband showed up at the house, unannounced. He had a meltdown on the front porch, begging for forgiveness, saying he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Our neighbors saw the whole scene. It was mortifying. I told him we could talk, but not here, not like this. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. At the coffee shop, he was a mess, crying and apologizing. He said he wanted to make things right, to be a family again. But how could I ever trust him after all this? I told him we needed to go to counseling together if there was any hope for us. But I made no promises. I needed to see real change, not just words. So, that's where we are now. It's been a roller coaster, and I'm just trying to hold on for the sake of our child. I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on healing and protecting what's left of our family. But I'll tell you this, I'm not the same person I was before. I'm stronger, more aware, and I won't be walked over again. Thanks for reading this update. My husband ignores me for his hobbies, and when I confront him, he admits to falling for someone else. So we try therapy, but trust is hard to rebuild when love is on the line. My husband, 43-year-old male, and I, 47-year-old female, have been together since 2014 and have been married for 1 year. We have one child who is 6 years old. Where to begin? Unfortunately, I am handicapped because of a chronic disease and can no longer work. I have worked as a high school teacher. He works full-time as a teacher on Mondays and Fridays until 1 p.m. and until 3 p.m. on the other weekdays. On his short days, he goes to the gym for 2.5 hours right after school. On Monday and Thursday evenings, he plays soccer with some colleagues and visits the sauna afterwards, from around 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. After he comes home from work, he does not want to communicate or spend time together, but rather sleep for about an hour. Afterwards, he drinks coffee, and then he needs time for himself. On the evenings he's home, he wants to watch his program on the TV, usually sports. So I spend my evenings alone with my iPad in my room. That's okay for me. We've almost slept separately since the beginning. On the weekends, he usually takes trips with our son. which I cannot join because of my disability. I'd love to go on some trips so that I might be able to join too. But he does not want our son to have to take this into account or miss out on anything because of me. Some days he also goes hiking with some friends for a whole day on weekends. That's okay, but every time I want to spend time with him, he says he does not have any time and that I am needy, and I just don't realize how busy he is. And when he does spend time with me, he limits it to only 5 minutes, saying that he wants or needs to do something else. And then he stands up after those 5 minutes. When I do complain and ask, for example, why he doesn't take time for me like he does for sports, he tells me that his sport is not negotiable because he's not doing it for fun, but for his health. He slipped a disc last year and has been told to go to the gym. Whatever I say, I am always the one who doesn't understand how things work or who is demanding a edit. He tells me that if I tell him how I feel about his behavior, I am the problem, and I'm merely projecting it onto him because I refuse to work on my health problems harder. I tried to tell him how I felt this afternoon and called him. I told him I felt lonely and sad, that he does not want to spend time with me. He just listened and said nothing. And then hollow phrases like, "We will find time in the future." I said, "I can't take it anymore." He said nothing. The line was just calm. And then after a while, "I'm going to end the call now." And he hung up. Am I expecting too much? How much time do you spend with your significant other? Edit. We have a cleaning helper that takes care of bathrooms, floors, etc. But we also have a dog, which takes about 4 to 5 hours of the week for him to walk, since I am not able to walk that long. Edit 2. He cooks most of the time, but our kid gets school lunch, and if he does not cook, I'm not asking him to. Update, Edit 1. He tells me that if I tell him how I feel about his behavior, I am the problem, and that I'm merely projecting it onto him, because I refuse to work on my health problems harder. Edit 2. He cooks most of the time, but our kid gets school lunch, and if he does not cook, I am not asking him to. Today I tried to talk to him again, but the result was Edit 1. Edit 2 I wrote, because he really does a lot at home. He just told me that tonight he's having a beer with the boys. I couldn't hold back and asked him, if he had time for that, why didn't he have time for me? He answered that if I helped him more at home, he would have more time for me. I asked him why he thinks I didn't help more. He answered with an eye roll, because you're not able to. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He won't choose family activities that you can be part of. This isn't a marriage. I'm so sorry you've basically been abandoned by your spouse. I would have a serious discussion about what he actually wants. You are not furniture. You are not an inconvenience. You're still his wife and the mother of his child. If he doesn't want to be a husband, it's time for him to speak up instead of excluding you pointedly every chance he gets. It's the trips with the son that don't include you. That's really showing that he wants to be pointedly cruel. Comment 2. You guys are practically divorced, emotionally. Your husband is extremely selfish. He cannot get a van suited for your wheelchair so you can be involved in activities and travel with them. He has shown repeatedly he wants nothing to do with you. At this point, you are a guest in the house, not his wife or partner. My advice? Divorce him. Because I don't think he will want to go to marriage counseling or even listen to you. Damn, he's such a freaking a-hole to you. Ugh. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, things have been pretty tense around here lately. Just last week, my husband dropped the news on me. He said he's been feeling overwhelmed with everything, including taking care of me and our son. He said he needed a break and was going to stay with a friend for a few days. I was shocked and hurt. I mean, I get that everyone needs a break now and then, but it felt like he was abandoning us. While he was gone, I had a lot of time to think. I remembered back when we first met, how he used to write me these sweet notes and surprise me with little gifts. It's like he was a completely different person back then. I guess the stress of life and my illness has really changed our relationship. Anyway, he came back after a few days and things were awkward. He apologized and said he just needed some space to clear his head. I wanted to believe that things would get better, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then, 2 days ago, I found out why he's been so distant. I overheard him talking on the phone with someone, and he mentioned a woman's name I didn't recognize. My heart sank. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I had to know what was going on. So I confronted him about it. He tried to brush it off at first, saying she was just a colleague from work. But I could tell he was lying. After some pressing, he admitted that he had developed feelings for her. He swore nothing physical had happened, but he couldn't deny the emotional connection. I was devastated. I'd felt betrayed and alone. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel a little bit of understanding. I know our life hasn't been easy, especially with my health issues. It's been hard on both of us. We had a long talk about our marriage and what we both wanted. It was painful, but also kind of a relief to get everything out in the open. We decided to try couples therapy to see if we could work through our issues. The therapy sessions have been tough. We've had to face some hard truths about our relationship and ourselves, but it's also brought us closer in a way. We're communicating better and actually spending more time together. Just yesterday, he surprised me by taking the day off work to spend with me. We didn't do anything special, just watched movies and talked, but it was the most connected I've felt to him in a long time. But here's the bittersweet part. Even though we're making progress, I can't shake the feeling that things will never be the same between us. There's a trust that's been broken, and I don't know if it can ever be fully repaired. I'm trying to stay hopeful, though. I love my husband, and I know he loves me, even if he's made some mistakes. We're both committed to trying to make our marriage work, and that's got to count for something. So that's where we're at right now. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, but I'm hanging in there. Thanks for reading. My boyfriend moves cities to be with me, but we fight over texts and calls, and he hides a dark past. So I choose my son and independence over his lies and find my own success background. Me, 34-year-old female, him, 43-year-old male. We've had a bit of a whirlwind romance. We met at a conference, and he moved over 100 miles to my city a few months ago, so we could spend time together. He has no kids and is not currently working, lives off inheritance. I have one 7-year-old son. He is pretty intense. He wants to talk and see each other every day. He talks about the future, moving in, marriage, babies, etc. I do believe he genuinely loves me and I love him, although our 8-month relationship has had its ups and downs, mainly over one communication. He wants to be able to call me whenever, but I am quite busy a lot and don't enjoy talking on the phone so much. I am more of a texter. He says I am unreliable, though I have spent a lot of time on the phone with him. He doesn't use WhatsApp or text as he hates it, though I prefer these. And 2, the fact that I haven't introduced him to my son. We have had some arguments over communication, and because he gets insecure, he has broken up with me once and threatened breakups at other times. Additionally, my son was quite affected by my split with his dad, so I wanted to take that part of things slow. I probably spend every weekday with my boyfriend, though, as I work from home and he comes over. We have had overnights, etc. I thought we were doing okay. I had the chance to go on a 5-day vacation here in the US with my mother, who lives overseas. This is something I have done with my mother and son since he was a baby. My boyfriend had booked to go see a friend in another state the same week. But the day after I arrived to meet my mom, my boyfriend called saying he was coming with his friend to where we were and he'd like to meet up. I felt bad about taking time away from my mom, and we had some plans, but I didn't say no. I said I'd think about it. Over the next couple of days, my boyfriend unraveled a bit because I was only texting, not calling him. I didn't think meeting up would work out. He ended up getting very upset and ghosting me for 2 days. Since then, he has said he is now not sure about our relationship and wants space. Despite knowing since early on that I have been away with my mom and son maybe every 1 to 2 years, he is now saying he would feel excluded if his partner ever went on vacation without him. He doesn't want someone who prizes independence so much. When I said he previously said my independence was something he really liked about me, he said he just said what I wanted to hear. He also wouldn't be okay if I wanted to do something with my son without him in the future. He also wants someone who he can call any time of the day or night and they will answer, even though I have a job with a lot of meetings and a kid I have main custody of. I felt like I had done something terrible by not saying yes to meeting up on my vacation or by only calling 2 days out of 4. Last time I went on a trip with my mom at Christmas, he showed up spontaneously to take me away for a night, and I left my son with her and felt guilty about missing that time with them both. I guess I didn't want to repeat that. He is now threatening to break up and says he doesn't know how he feels and may leave me or our city. I am so upset and feel guilty. I previously thought it was normal to sometimes see families separately. I wasn't trying to exclude or reject him. I just wanted that time with my mom and son. He swears he is not controlling, but I thought it was okay to do stuff apart at times and to communicate in a way that works for both of us. Who is in the wrong here? Any opinions are gratefully received, as I am so exhausted from apologizing and begging the last few days. He's acting like he couldn't care less when, just over a week ago, he called me the love of his life. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Really? Really? You don't see the issues with his behavior? If this is how manipulative he is now, what will happen when his lying, gaslighting, unemployed butt moves in with you? Any independence you have will be gone, and so will the essence of what makes you, you. Don't let him steal your sunshine or self-worth. Comment 2. He is. He isn't equipped to date someone who has any priorities except him. He needs an unemployed orphan, not a person who works, has a kid, other family members, and a desire to exist outside of being his girlfriend. Stop begging and apologizing for being a person. Let him go. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, after my last post, things went from bad to worse. My boyfriend, let's call him Mr. Intense, decided to take a sudden and unexpected leap. He left the city. Just like that. No warning, no discussion, nothing. He packed his bags, and when I called him, all I got was a voicemail saying he needed to find himself and that maybe our paths would cross again in the future. I was stunned, confused, and honestly, a bit relieved. But here's where it gets really twisted. The day after he left, I found out he'd been keeping secrets. Big ones. Turns out, Mr. Intense had a whole other life I knew nothing about. A mutual friend, who couldn't keep it to herself any longer, spilled the beans. He was married before, something he never mentioned. And it ended because he was too, intense. His ex-wife had a restraining order against him. I was floored. All this time he'd been playing the devoted boyfriend, but he was hiding a past that was more than just a little concerning. Feeling like a fool, I decided to take control of the situation. I changed my locks, blocked his number, and started focusing on myself and my son. I was done with Mr. Intense and his drama, but just when I thought I could breathe a sigh of relief, he tried to weasel his way back into my life. He sent flowers, letters, and even tried to get messages to me through friends. But I stood my ground. No more manipulation, no more guilt trips. And then, the sweetest form of revenge presented itself. Mr. Intense had left a bunch of his stuff at my place. Clothes, some personal items, and a few other things. I gathered it all up, donated what I could, and trashed the rest. It felt good, like I was finally purging my life of his presence. But the real kicker came when I got a promotion at work. The promotion he always said I wouldn't get because I was too distracted by family. Well, guess who's laughing now? I got the recognition I deserved, and it was the perfect cherry on top of my newfound independence. As for my son, he's happier than ever. We're spending quality time together, just the two of us, and it's been wonderful. I've learned my lesson, though. No more whirlwind romances for me. From now on, it's slow and steady with clear boundaries and a lot less drama. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.